if you can hear any of this
Yeah.
in my play now.
Oh, go ahead.
Codified around the year.
Yeah, I got it. Good.
Great.
Certain of the traditions in the Mishnah date
So let's-
back at least 150 years to rabbis in the late Second Temple era. Okay. So Izzy writes in on this video that we were talking about, did Paul quote the Mishnah? Izzy says this, he says, I'm Jewish and I have no dog in the fight, but the Mishnah was codified around the year 200, and certain of the traditions in the Mishnah date back at least 150 years to rabbis in the late Second Temple era, when the New Testament writers lived as well. The late Second Temple era sages Hillel and Rabbi Gamaliel are quoted in the Mishnah. It's not even necessary to get into the question of whether the oral Torah goes back to Moses, but there were oral traditions that the New Testament writers knew about and drew upon, even if they did so with their particular own understanding.
True.
That's the entire comment.
Wait a minute. He says that the oral Torah goes back to Moses?
No, he said that's not even he says that's not even a question that we need to talk about. In other words, he's not saying
okay. He's not saying that we just take that for granted. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
No, he's not even taking it for granted. He's saying
Gotcha.
what I'm saying is that the way I'm reading this is I don't think that the oral Torah goes back to Moses.
Okay, so
But-
let me repeat back what I think I'm hearing. He's
No.
saying, hey, first of all, he's Jewish. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But that doesn't really.
This and other useless pieces of information.
No, I mean, I
in the-
guess
in
I
the
don't
quote.
understand what
He's saying that
the idea is that the
we
Mishnah
don't need to talk
was
about the fact that
codified
Moses-
around the year 200,
Yep.
and which of course is post-temple destruction. But the Mishnah itself contains quotes from Hillel and Gamaliel, who lived in the late Second Temple period, which is when the apostles lived. So therefore,
They
should
certainly
read-
were. Yeah, they were
should
certainly
read-
pulling from the
okay. So
traditions.
So he's just stating this as fact, or is he asking? Do we agree? What?
No, he's stating that as fact.
Okay.
And so,
Obvious
so here's gonna be the response.
Uh-huh.
Okay, here's my response. Let's read it again. I'm Jewish. I don't know why this is put in. I'm Jewish and I have no dog in the fight. But the Mishnah was codified around the year 200, and certain traditions of the Mishnah date back at least 150 years. Prove it. That is my response. There is absolutely no evidence
Septuagint.
whatsoever.
Septuagint. Septuagint, there's a proof. Are you still with us?
Oh, I'm listening. This is wonderful. Good. Just go at him.
Just one word.
Play it.
Septuagint. The
Let's see
Septuagint
what they say.
translation. The Septuagint translation is absolutely solidly known from 150 BC, and it includes in it the differences which appear in the Mishnah in the Septuagint between the Septuagint and the Tanakh. The reason why there are differences is because the Septuagint includes Mishnah. And then Jesus and his disciples, of course, the New Testament is all quoting the same Mishnah which they have knowledge of in the Hasmonean Minhag.
Well, let's see how they answer it.
That the Mishnah was codified in the year 200. The only evidence that you have is writers, rabbis in the
And Augustine of Hippo.
Middle Ages saying that the Mishnah was codified. That's it. You don't have. It's like let me give you
Imagine
an
a court of
example.
law. Imagine a court. Caleb, you're the judge, and I'm a lawyer, and I
Wait.
come up and I say, "Here's the document that says."
No. Wait. Here's a perfect example. Look, the Catholic Church says that that they've had a pope all the way since Paul or since Peter.
Right, they do.
Why is what this person is saying? What Izzy is saying is that we should believe people who say things. So because the later Catholic Church.
So why should you even believe in Christianity or Jesus or anything at all if you don't believe in the validity of the Bible, which we have the two copies, from the Sinai Codex and the Vatican Codex from the year 325, Council of Nicaea. But and then prior to that, we've got these, like scraps of information concerning the Jesus, but this story of Jesus as fulfilling all the messianic prophecies and what. The things he's saying to his disciples, do unto others as you have them do unto you. This is Hillel. The argument over the washing their hands. Shammai says you have to wash your hands before you start. Even the meal, the starter. Hillel says you only need to wash your hands before bread, nothing else, just bread. And Jesus is taking the Hillel stance there. All these arguments. I mean, all he needs is to read that book, Harvey Falk's Jesus the Pharisee, and then you've got this question, which I think he's not even aware of. Where did Jesus get all this Mishnah from? Is it actually Jesus invented all the Mishnah, and therefore actually Judaism is just copying Jesus, because in fact Judaism is the secret church of Saint Gamaliel, which is actually just copying everything that Jesus taught us? Well, that's cool. That's great. That's interesting. If you're a Christian, cool. Yeah. And if that's not the case, then where did Jesus get all this from? Either way, Jesus either loved the Mishnah or Judaism loved Jesus' teachings. Which one was it? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, this is perfect. I mean, I've been waiting for you to take on these guys.
I won't get into it because they irritate me. But
I
don't know. This man.
I know. I mean, it's been a year. I've been feeding you stuff from them, but I think this is good for us to continue going on from what we've just done, because it's kind of just put a nail in the hammer of this coffin. Because
I mean, there's no point. There's no point in arguing with an idiot.
Hammered.
Although only an idiot argues with an idiot. It's like all you have to say, like, okay, you don't know enough. You don't know enough. These people don't know enough. It's the fact.
Just go on a little further. Just go on
a little bit more. All right, let's. I don't mean to like. I'm sure that in his job he's a genius. Whatever he does for a living. I'm sure that to his family he's a lovely guy. I'm sure that his neighbors he's fantastic. But look, you just don't know about this topic. Drop it. You don't know the topic. Neither did your father. Drop it. Go and do something else which you've got better knowledge of. Just
says
tell me when,
that
where,
the popes that there's
where do you want me to go up to with this, and hopefully not for the next half an hour, right? How long?
No. I just we're ready.
Also let you know
we're still under an hour, Joe. Let's have another 15 minutes of these guys, and then I'll.
Well, we have to interrupt and comment a lot, because otherwise these guys can say we just quoted their video on our video and then want to bring it down because there's no commentary. We have to make commentary when we play somebody else's video, otherwise the channel will be deleted. So
yes, I want you to do that.
Session all the way.
So interrupt with commentary as much as you like. Then
from Peter on, we should just believe it. We shouldn't understand that the popes actually came around in the in the later 3rd, 4th, 5th century, and that the idea of the pope, like having ultimate authority, doesn't come around into the 5th or 6th century. No, we should just accept what people say.
They're muddying the argument. With this.
Rabbis want to tell.
So again.
They're totally muddying the argument, because this is a perfect example. As they're using historic Christianity and our intramural fights over the Pope, which is irrelevant to the whole Judaism question.
Well, what is the relevance? Yeah, and in fact, the guy says Izzy says, I'm Jewish. I have no dog in the fight. So why are you responding to Izzy with information about the Pope? It's like, what's this got to do with anything?
Yeah. Tell you that the Mishnah is codified in the 200s and that the traditions go back farther. And the reason why is because they want to tell you that the New Testament is based on those things. And Izzy has bought.
We can look at the traditions of the church, which were thrown out gradually, like all sorts of things, like crossing yourself with holy water before you enter and we can identify the Jewish origin of these things. Washing your head, your feet, and your hands before you enter the holy place. There are Hebrewisms in the church traditions which he just dismissed here and say, well, you don't have to think about any of them, just throw them all out. Well, you've just thrown out like hundreds of examples of Hebrewism, which are actually Mishnaic things, which the church tradition used to do. And now these Messianic Jews coming along trying to reinvent the wheel, it's like, we already threw out all the Hebrewisms. Why don't you just go back and study church history and see how many Hebrewisms you threw out without realizing that there was actually something Jewish about it? The Havdalah ceremony has candles, incense, wine, and if you do the Melev Malkah, you have got little scraps of bread left over as well, little pieces of bread. Well, how many of these Protestants do their masses with wine, bread, and candles and incense? Is incense common in this? No, because it was thrown out. Well, that's part of Havdalah. So it's another Jewish element which is thrown out. They think that Sunday worship was invented by Christians. No, it's Havdalah.
I've watched lots of their episodes over the last 10 years. I've gone back, and they say their favorite episode is when they had an interview with a Roman Catholic scholar named Brent Petrie, I think his name is, who wrote a book basically using the Passover as the basis for the Roman Mass, and they liked it. And these guys are evangelicals because he was using the Jewish sources, and they totally, and we've done. Remember,
brought in at Vatican II. Before Vatican II, nobody had ever heard of the concept that the Mass was modeled on the Passover Seder. Nobody.
Well,
for thousands of years.
But besides that, this was one of the things Eric the Great brought in his book, and I remember it was like, these guys loved that book. I couldn't believe it, and they interviewed him.
Because of an utter lack of knowledge of Judaism. If they look, Havdalah is so basic. It's like the second thing. What do Jews do? Well, they light candles on Friday night. Okay. What's the second things Jews do? Well, they also light candles, drink wine, and have little bits of bread left over when they smell some incense on Saturday night. That's the second thing that you're going to learn about Judaism. They don't even know enough. That's how impoverished their knowledge of Judaism is. But if they just spent a little bit more time studying it, they would say, oh, well, look, that's the Mass. That's the Mass right there. No.
Let him talk a little further.
All right.
Hook, line, and sinker into it. There is no historical data whatsoever that would suggest this to be true. I'm going to keep going, and then you can come back and tell me your thoughts. The rabbis in the late Second Temple era, when the New Testament writers lived as well, the late Second Temple era sages Hillel and Rabbi Gamaliel are quoted in the Mishnah. I have done a video on this, and there was a Messianic apologist who just got so upset that I would say such a thing. But I am not convinced that any of these people, any of the quotes in the Mishnah, go back to the people that they say are quoting them. I think.
Okay, well, it's also worthwhile mentioning, the long-standing church traditions. Gamaliel okay, teacher of Paul, who just mentioned Gamaliel, was a real historical person, mentioned in the church traditions, in the book of Acts as well. And traditionally, Simon the Elder, who blesses Jesus when he's a baby, is the son of Hillel, Hillel's son. We also have the mention of Nicodemus is mentioned in the Mishnah. Nicodemus is mentioned in the Talmud. It's like, these are historical people. So why suddenly he says that, no, none of these sentences go back to these historical people? Well, who recorded these historical people? And why do we remember their names?
The
Why are
Bible.
they? Well, no, the Talmud. Why are they in
Oh,
Judaism?
the Talmud as well. Yeah.
Why are they in the Talmud? If they didn't say anything and they're completely irrelevant to it. Why do we even remember their names? Why do we remember Nicodemus? Why do we remember Hillel? Why do we remember Gamaliel? Why do we remember Simon? You know, why do we remember these people who are also mentioned in the Bible? Why do we remember them in Judaism if they didn't say anything? You know, but he says no, they didn't say anything. Okay.
I think honestly what's happening is they have to attach their quotes to somebody to make them feel like they have a real strong emphasis.
Why? He's saying Jews feel like we have to attach our quotes to somebody to make them feel we have strong emphasis. So we picked some people's names from the Bible and attached our quotes to them. We picked some people from the New Testament, I should say, and attached our quotes to them to make us feel like we had some legitimacy in Judaism. and then said that the New Testament is only for non-Jews. It's not for Jews. It's like, why would we choose names from the New Testament then? Why didn't we choose other names? Is he a Nazi? Honestly,
I suggested that Hillel and Shammai never said anything that's quoted in the Mishnah, and people just got so upset about that. But ultimately, we see this in Christianity, we see it in Judaism, we see it in all different places. If you want something to have some emphasis, then attach a name to it. The reason that we have pseudepigraphical works throughout history is because people know that if they say something and they want it to be taken seriously, well, put the name Enoch on it, or put the name, Peter on it, or
let's take the name Nicodemus from the New Testament and stick it on it. Or let's take the name Gamaliel from the New Testament and stick it. So these people didn't exist then, because if they didn't,
Shooting himself in the foot, and he's just like,
look, this is a guy who's clearly on the right. He wanted to attack Judaism. He wanted to attack Jews. Made a fake conversion to Judaism so they can drop it and say, "Hey, I'm not an anti-Semite." But no, you're an absolute anti-Semite, and your whole attitude.
they're total replacement theologians.
Complete. Yeah, but he made this fake conversion. Do you know what you call a person who converts to Judaism and then?
Yeah, we talked about that on the first one. That's a serious thing. I mean,
the Ger Sheker.
Yeah, the Ger Sheker, right?
Ger Sheker. He's a Ger Sheker. This is like Amalek as far as is concerned from the Judaic point of view. So he's an Amalek, and he's trying to pretend that he's not Amalek. Well, you were always Amalek. Your objective was to attack Judaism. Do we have to listen to these people?
Well, Rob is quite snarky, so I think you might enjoy that. I mean, Caleb is platitudes and Rob is snarky. So let's finish off with Rob.
The one we're speaking to right now is platitude. The one listening to right now is platitudes, and the other one is snarky. Because I thought this guy was snarky. All right, let's have a listen.
Or you put all these different names on it. Why? To give it a emphasis. Guess what?
Gospel of Judas. Remember that when that came out, like with the Dan Brown, Da Vinci Code, and all that.
And all these
He just shot himself in the foot. I mean, do they even know what they're doing?
people, they look at these things and they say, "Oh yeah, well, that's pseudepigraphical. That's no big deal." But then they look at the Mishnah. They say, "Of course, Gamaliel said this. Of course, Hillel said
They remind
this."
me of the guys in Wayne's World, or
Yes.
something like that.
Beavis and Butthead.
We wouldn't be with them back.
I mean, I will even give the notion that the Mishnah was compiled in the 3rd or 4th century. I'll give you that.
Okay.
I don't think that's necessarily true, but let's just pretend that is true.
Okay, let's pretend.
Okay. Now, is there proof of that? I don't think there is. But you have.
So, I mean, does he understand that he's saying that therefore Judaism just copied everything from the New Testament?
Mm-hmm.
Does he understand that that's what he's claiming? In the medieval times, along came a bunch of Jews who copied everything from the New Testament. Why would?
Well, that's their definition of rabbinical Judaism. There it is, right here. It's just what it is.
I mean, if that is
It's
what
Amalek.
Well, if that is what happened, it means that modern Judaism descends from a bunch of medieval Messianic Jews.
That's it.
So why are you bothering to attack it? You're just attacking Messianic Jews. These people don't understand anything.
Have the manuscript of the Mishnah, the first manuscript, the full manuscript of the Mishnah that comes out that we have is in the 1200s. It's contained in the 1100s. It's contained in a codex of the Talmud.
Oh,
You don't
by the
have-
way, so if he's going to go and say, let's look at the earliest documents that we have, then you're also screwed, because the earliest Bible you have is only 325. There are scraps of scriptures which exist before 325. But you need the Council of Nicaea. to have the Bible, the earliest Bible, and it wasn't even codified until the Council of Hippo, but it was assembled and disseminated. There were 50 copies put together at Council of Nicaea. If without Council of Nicaea, you've got no Bible, and then what's your religion based on? You know, so if you're going to go for the oldest copies, okay, oldest copy of the Bible is 325. We have it today. We've got 2 of them, 325. There is no. So you're going to say, well, it didn't exist before the oldest copy. Then you say, okay, then Christianity and the whole of Judaism didn't exist before 325 because we don't have any Old Testament, complete Old Testament. Neither do we have a complete New Testament until 325. So the whole thing was invented in 325 by the Council of Nicaea. The whole thing, using his argument. Does he realize that? Maybe he does realize that, and he's actually a secret atheist whose objective is to pull the whole thing down by pretending to be something that he's not. You see my argument?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's their argument with this medieval Judaism. That's where the paper trail stops for them, and that's what they accept where it begins.
So that's where it begins. So, okay, the paper trail, if we're talking about complete texts, because he's obviously not talking about little passages from the Talmud quoted by this church father, that church father, or a little scrap here, or a little scrap there, or a bit in the Quran here, or Islamic sources there, which, you know, there are plenty of them.
Those guys know nothing about Islam, and that
they don't know anything about these things. But he's saying, okay, the oldest complete copies we have are from this day. Okay, then the oldest complete copy of the Bible is 325, and all you've got before then is just a scrap here and a scrap there. So if the Mishnah began in medieval times, because that's the earliest copy, then biblical religion began in 325. It doesn't make sense. All you have before then is just a few scraps of scripture. All right, then. So then, biblical anybody, whether they are Muslim, Christian, or Jew, will all have to believe, if they go on the basis of evidence, all of them will have to believe that the Council of Nicaea was divinely inspired by God. Otherwise, there's no biblical religion. For us, it's not a problem because I've never spoken out against the Council of Nicaea. I've always defended it for Messianic Noahites and said, no, it's not a problem. Constantine was a bad guy, but if you look at the history of what was happening in 325, Constantine was being fought against by a group of basically Jewish bishops who were trying to say no to Constantine's cult. Constantine got angry and split up the church and the synagogue as a result. 100 years later, Roman Christianity exists, and the Council of Hippo canonizes basically the Bible, which was put together by these Jewish bishops. Who, I have no problem of saying for Messianic Noahites, this is a divinely revealed Council of Nicaea. No problem. Here's your biblical religion. Here's your revelation. But what does he have? Do they believe in Council of Nicaea? Are they really keen on Constantine? Because the standard narrative is that Constantine is the one who's behind the Council of Nicaea. And I'm sure that they don't even think to analyze that story and identify, hold on a second, that's bogus. Right? Let's have a listen.
Have anything prior to that. Now, some people might say, well, we have a fragment from the Cairo Geniza. It's like 2 words or 3 words. It's real small.
He doesn't know about these.
The Geniza, to be fair, is an ongoing research, and they are finding more and more little fragments, but they're still new. They're new fragments. They're medieval fragments. Right. They're not from, 3rd century. So
ultimately,
this is what scholars have to do. Scholars have to take what they do is they look at the emergence and the kind of the trajectories of the rabbinic corpus. And they know that there's a Babylonian Talmud, there's a Talmud of the land of Israel, they call it the Jerusalem Talmud. And inside both those Talmuds, there is nestled quotations of something called the Mishnah. But if you compare the quotations of the Mishnah in the Babylonian Talmud with the quotations of the Mishnah in Jerusalem Talmud, there's not a stable text. What you see is an emerging of discussion struggle to try to understand the teachings that are stemmed from Rabbi Akiva's disciples. And they are said to have been compiled by Judah the Prince around, and that's estimated around the year 200. But there's no documentary evidence.
You know why they want to go against Judah the Prince? I tell you what, this is part of something bigger.
Yeah,
Judah the Prince is the one who basically says that there is no such thing as genetic Israel. It's spiritual. That's basically what he says. That there is no inheritance from your fathers. You can be a Jew from your mother, but you haven't inherited anything from your father. Therefore, there is no right of being Israel, which you inherit from your father. In other words, you need Judaism in order to be Israel. Well, this is a direct, affront against anybody who believes that Israel is some kind of genetic status. I have a gene of a Jew inside of me, therefore I am Israel. And a lot of these Messianic types, is he still a Messianic Jew, this guy, this Caleb, or has he given up on that now?
No, I think he's studying with the Southern Baptists, and I believe
Oh,
he has more. He follows
things.
a Van Til. There was a Presbyterian or a neo-Calvinist theologian, Westminster Seminary, named Cornelius Van Til, and he follows closely one of his interpreters named Greg Bonson, who was very. But they're very involved in using. That's why he calls his ministry pronomian. Now Rob with the hat, he still works for this Torah resource, which was started by Tim Hegg, the article we just read. You can see he's a lot. This is the son. He's got his baggage with being a former Breslover and
So sorry, now which one's the son?
Yeah,
the
Caleb's the
Caleb's
son.
the son. Oh, he converted to Judaism and kicked out.
Yeah,
He's the
and Rob is standard rank and file evangelical, takes the academic route, part of the Evangelical Theological Society, writes papers, Torah resource, but trying to obviously they have a context. We could tell from that paper that the Messianic Judaism world in the New World in the United States is a mess.
It's an invention.
It's an invention, so they got easy targets everywhere, and that's what they're addressing with this. It seems like they're addressing more of a Hebrew roots person at this juncture. But just to hear their arguments, it's just foolish.
It's so. I mean, we started listening because it was like receipts, please. We're talking about the paper trail.
Yeah.
We were criticizing Tim Hegg for basically inventing this thing and saying, look, where's your evidence of the apostolic Judaism? It doesn't exist. What you want really is to look into Noahite Judaism, and then you got even Augustine of Hippo talking about it. Okay, so that's really good because you've got it from essentially the enemies of Judaism talking about it. So, well, that's really great. It's like principle of embarrassment situation. So it goes back very early.
It's interesting that what you've just brought out with Judah the Prince with the genetic Jew, because we are. I think this is one discussion we're having amongst ourselves that this genetic Judaism is a problem, but.
Well, they want to go back
not so fast. We understand halakha. We understand there's a proper way of passing this down, and it is Judaism. So it is the religion. Now the genetic Jew, obviously the halakha gives sanction how this should be then ascertained. So what we're talking about here
only for 3 generations. Remember, only for 3 generations. If your mother's mother's mother was Jewish, you're all right. But if your mother's 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 mother was Jewish, you're not Jewish. So it doesn't only for 3 generations. So anybody else is considered Hebrew. Yeah, you've got Hebrew DNA. You can call yourself a Hebrew, but that doesn't make you any better than Amalek. Amalek was also a Hebrew. Doesn't mean that you're somehow friendly to Judaism or the essence of God. You just because you have a Hebrew gene. In fact, it's equally easy to become a Hebrew just simply by believing in the Bible and getting yourself immersed. Now you're a Hebrew. Whether you're a Muslim or Christian, you're all Hebrews. So it really doesn't make you any different from a Christian or a Muslim if you happen to have a Jewish gene here in your body somewhere.
And that's why we can use the word spiritual Israel, qualifying it. Well, let's go back to the Abrahamic family and let's really see what went on there. Because where are we going to get the proper information to really understand the heir of Rav? Where are we going to get the proper understanding of Esau? Why did I hate you?
Yeah.
Now, these are the things that only come out in Judaism in terms of the oral Torah, the Haggadah. These are the things that we need to source. And this is an oral tradition.
It's always been the project to get rid of the Jews and Judaism because we are the memory. And as long as the memory exists, then nobody can come along with their cults and pretend that they are the authentic real McCoy. They have to eliminate the tree. They have to burn the roots in order to say, this new tree over here is the original. Because as long as the roots exist, it could sprout up something and people say, hold on a second, if this is the original, who are they? So you have to eliminate the roots. And how do you eliminate the roots? If you kill Jews, not by what Hitler thought, or just throw them in the gas chambers, that didn't work. You kill Jews by attacking Judaism. And that's what these guys are doing.
Joe, as a missionary, I was trained, obviously, through the social science, but I've seen a number of things come in recent years, what is called orality. And this is, I think, a very important thing social sciences have helped discover, that cultures, and you probably saw this in Western Siberia, these things are oral traditions passed down. You were talking about the healing type of directions the other day. We were having
this private a little bit, because that was on between you and me. But yeah.
Oh, sorry, but I'm just saying.
Okay. I was in West Siberia doing studies. That's enough.
Yeah. But anyways, it just makes that type of argument with orality in cultures, and I've been in cultures now where you're dealing with the influx of these refugees coming, and they're not reading cultures. You can see this. So when you're working among missions, you're seeing, well, obviously these Bible translators, they have a big job after them to bring people into the text. Now, Judaism was a reading culture. The yeshiva was all about that. So that reading culture was based off the Torah, and it had to be streamlined in a way, and therefore it goes forward in terms of the orality. So.
Well, so he was talking.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
No.
I think you've had your fill.
Enough of these guys. I've had enough of these guys.
Oh, that's what I wanted. Let's just put.
I want to come